Okay, Samach Bezim Aleph, 62a. Okay, and we're about 10 lines down. Amar Rava, Hanaisin Dinner Zov Leisha. The first one line is Bovad. Okay, a little bit of background. Picking up where we were yesterday. Yesterday we had a discussion. I guess the question we're addressing here, let's go even further back. Yeah. We spoke about H and Tomain. If you light a fire and it burns something that's hidden. We said Tomain is limited according to Rav in a scenario where the fire began in your property and went to your friend's property. But if the fire started in your friend's property, there's no exemption for Tomain. However, there is an exemption of things that aren't usually there. You're only liable for things that you can typically expect to find there. The Gemara furthermore stated, this is what we saw at the end of yesterday, that let's say a guy gives permission for his friend to put barley on his property. And the guy put the more expensive option of wheat. Or wheat and he put barley. Or he got permission for barley, he put barley, but he covered it with wheat. Right? Or he got permission for wheat and he put wheat and he covered it with barley. In all those scenarios, the owner of the property pays the value of barley, which is lower value. And the reason is either because he only gave him permission to put barley, or he thought that the guy chose to put barley, even though he gave him permission for wheat. Amar Rava, Hanaisin Dinner Zov Leisha. Somebody gave a gold coin to a woman to watch. And he said to her, Hizahari boy, be careful. It's actually silver, it's not gold. Okay, Hizikasai, let's say she broke the coin, she damaged it. Then she pays a gold coin. Because he can say to her, okay, so if she actually damages the coin, so then she's responsible for paying a gold coin, what it actually was. However, Pashaba, let's say she was negligent and she didn't watch it correctly. So then Mishalem Kesef, she thought it was silver. So she only pays a silver coin. The Amrlay, because she can say to him, I accepted to watch a silver coin, not a gold coin. I didn't realize the coin was gold. So therefore, I'm not responsible for a gold coin. If she damages it directly, then it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if you go to your friend's property and you damage him. It doesn't make a difference if you knew what you were damaging or not. You're still liable. Amrullah of Mordechai Ravashi. So Rav Mordechai says to Ravashi, Atum Rav Masnisim Lu, Anam Masnisim Shitalim. In other words, you needed Rava to tell this to you. I figured this out from the Mishnah. Why? I'm sorry, from the Brisa. Chitin v'chitin b'sayron. He got permission for wheat. He put down wheat, but he covered it with barley, or the opposite. Sayron v'chitin v'chitin. He got permission for barley. He covered it with wheat. Ein mishal mal d'mei sayron b'vad. Alma, evidently, you only pay the value of the barley. Alma Amar Lane, if he wishes to sour kibili alaya. Evidently, the guy can argue, I've only accepted to watch barley. Hachanami Amar Lane, if he wishes to dahava like kibili alay. The woman can argue, I did not accept responsibility to watch a gold coin. Amar Rav, so Rav says, Shamet, okay, 1 second. Okay. This concludes the previous Gemara. Now we go a little bit to the sides. So Amar Rav. Rav says, Shamet Miltzler of Yehudah. I have heard something in the name of Yehudah, V'layadayna Maihi, but I forgot what it was. Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel says, V'layada Abba, talking about Rav. Rav's name was Abba. He says you don't know what it was. Rav Yehudah the Mechayev on this guy Tom Beish. Rav Yehudah held that you were liable for the. According to Rabbi Yehudah, that held that you're chayev on Tom and Beish, meaning if there's stuff that's hidden in the property, you're still liable for it. So if that's the case, there's a problem here. How do we know what was hidden? Now, this problem is much more than just a problem with regard to Tom and Aish. Every time a robber comes to your house and steals, how do you know what he stole? As the victim says, you stole all these things. Maybe the victim is lying. Maybe the victim is padding his insurance books because he wants a bigger payout. So what do we do? So the answer is also tekonas nigzal be'eshai. 1 second. Yeah. We allow the victim to make an oath, detailing or affirming that the list of items he claims was stolen is indeed accurate. And similarly, with regard to Tam and Beish, we allow the owner to say, okay, write down a list of what was burnt, and make an oath, and we'll believe you. Okay. So Meimer wants to know if we can apply the same rule. This is what we call tekonas nigzal. The fact that the victim can make an oath about what was burnt or stolen. Does this apply to the following scenario? Os tekonas nigzal b'moser or loy? Moser is tattling, where a Jew tattles to a non-Jew to confiscate a Jewish property. So os tekonas nigzal b'moser or loy, which is prohibited. So do they make this decree for a moser or not? So the Gemara explains. Okay, the first question is Dina de Garmi. This is the difference between in Ezekiel we talk about the concept of Garmi and Groma. The exact distinction is it remains a major question. Down to the Rishonim that aren't exactly clear how to define it. It's tastes about it in Basra, but without going into it. Garmi is more direct, Groma is less direct. Meaning that we consider the result related to the action. So for example, let's say a good example would be a guy unplugs a hole in a dam, and there's somebody standing there, and from the force of the dam breaking or the water gushing forth, it knocks him down and kills him. The halacha is that the man is liable for the death penalty, capital punishment. That's called murder. Now, technically speaking, it wasn't his energy that murdered him, right? Because when you use a knife to kill somebody, it's your energy. Over here, he's sort of releasing latent energy. Right?
Right.
Okay, now the question really is, how far down do you take that? So what happens if the guy's not downstream, not immediately in front of the dam, but he's, I don't know, a couple miles downstream and the water hits him there? Is that also called directly your action? Or do we say that at some point, once you release the dam, it's no longer your action anymore? That would be a question of Garmi and Groma. Now, the question is tattling to the king to get him to confiscate a Jewish property? Again, it's not your action that's confiscating the property, right? It's sort of, your what do you call it? He's instigating that the king should steal the property. He's an instigator. Is he liable or not? So one opinion. So this is called Garmi, and it's a machlokes whether or not he's liable. I'll leave it. I'll leave the if you're not liable for garmi, you're not liable for mesiris either, for tattling. What's the question? I'll leave them on the amr dainin the garmi. According to the opinion that says you do follow the rules of garmi. And the question is, Ostikan is nigzal b'moser the mishtav v'shakal oilai. Okay, Ostakanas Nigzal Maser. Do they make a Takanas Nigzal? In other words, so the guy tattles, right? His field is confiscated. We don't know what was on the field when it was confiscated. So do we have Takanas Nigzal here that we allow the victim to affirm what was on the list? You know, how many different stuff was taken by the king? The Mishtab of Shakal, I lie or not? And the Gemara responds with Teku. It remains unresolved. Who Gavra? There was this guy did botash because pasta de Chavre. His friend had it seems like a safe or like a money belt. And how did it translate? Has yours translate kaspasta?
Money box.
The money box. Yeah.
The money box of the store.
So he kicked his friend's money box and shot him an hour. It fell into the river. Okay. Now what do you think the question here is? What was in the money box? Fair enough. Asamari. So the owner comes for Omar. He says, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what was inside. Yosef Ravashi Ravashi was pondering this question, and he was wondering what to do. Amar Ravina Ravacha Bredi Ravo. So Ravina says to Ravacha the son of Rava. Amilo Ravacha Bredi Ravo Ravashi. Some say Ravacha the son of Rava said to Ravashi. Haina Masnisin. This is the Mishnah. The Tanai we learned. The rabbis admit to Rabbi Yehudah. Okay, so again, let's go backwards a little bit here. We say there are two opinions of the rabbis. The rabbis have two opinions. What are the two opinions? Number one, Talmud is exempt. According to Rav, that the Talmud is only exempt when you lit the fire in your domain and it travels to your friend's domain. But if you lit the fire in your friend's domain, you are liable for Talmud. However, a second opinion of the rabbis is what type of Talmud are you liable for in that scenario? So you go to your friend's house and you torch it. What are you liable for? Things that are usually in a house. You know, if you had a helicopter inside the house, you wouldn't be chayav to pay for it. Okay.
So if you are in your house and you start the fire.
So and then it spreads to your friend's house. Only liable for the house. You're not reliable for the dishes that are inside. 1 second. Okay. And now what are you responsible for? It's in the house. You can things that are normal to be in a house. Okay. Therefore, what's the response to the guy who kicks the money box into the river? The end. Find out what's normal. Exactly. So Amalei, so he says to him as follows: if the guy was demanding money, was money in the money box, then you're right. We would make him make a list, and he would make the other guy, we'd make the victim swear and affirm that his list is accurate, and then we'd allow him to collect. What are we talking about? The Gatan Marganisa. He claims there was diamonds inside. What's the story? Mi manchi inshi Marganisa bekaspasta oilai. Do people keep diamonds in this money box or not? Gemara resolves, Teku, we let it stand. Okay. Amalei Rav Yemer Ravashi. Rav Yemer, so we're continuing on the same subject. Rav Yemer says to Ravashi, Ton kisa de kaspa bevira. He was holding a silver goblet in a bira, in a palace. What's the story? In other words, the guy claims that his palace burned and there were silver goblets in there. So Amalei, he says, if the man's wealthy, it's like kisa de kaspa, that he has a silver cup, or he's trustworthy. In other words, that people would entrust him with watching their own silver cups. So then so then it's normal that he would have a silver cup in his house, and therefore makes an oath to affirm that was on his list, and he collects it. But if it's unusual, an oath alone is not sufficient to claim that to validate a claim that this item was in your house. It has to be not just a claim, but also the fact that this would likely be in your house.
So enough this put a person in a position where they're lying there.
So so an oath makes the lie more severe. It's if you want an analog, it would probably be something like perjury. So you could lie to me from today to tomorrow. There's no legal penalty that I can inflict on you. But once you do it in court, then all of a sudden you can go to prison for lying, perjury. So this is sort of that similar type of idea. The Eloi Lav Kol Kamine. Okay. Okay. Amar LeRavada brother of Eva LeRavashi. Ravada the son of Aviva says to Ravashi. Okay. Interesting question. Ma ben Gazlan lechamsin. What's the difference between a Gazlan and a Chamsin? Chamsin, the shirish, the root of the word is chamos, as in by the flood, right? It says kimola haaretz chamos. Chamos is a word that's associated with stealing. But why sometimes we call somebody a gazlan? A gazlan, you remember, is a daytime thief, effectively a mugger, and a chamsin. A chamsin is someone who engages in chamos. Chamos is robbery. What's the difference between the two different types of robberies? So Amalei, he says to him, chamsin yahav dami, gazlan lo yahav dami. A chamsin pays for it. A thief doesn't pay. So Amalei, provide the counter of Ravashi, Yahiv Dami Chamsin Karasli. If the guy pays, you call him a Chamsin. If you hang somebody up, you threaten to hang him, you force him to sell you something, the sale is valid. And the reason is because the guy would prefer the sale to the threatened consequence, and that is sufficient to validate a sale. So therefore, actually, if you go to a guy with a gun and you say, you better sell this to me or else I'll shoot you, and the guy says, okay, no problem, I'm selling it to you, then you're not a thief. You obviously shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. You could be killed in the process, and legitimately so, but you're not a thief. Mm-hmm. So why do we call him a chamsin? Okay, so the Gemara says loikash hadam writes any. One scenario is the guy's like, okay, I don't want to be killed, I'll sell it to you. And the other case is where the guy said, no, I'm not selling it to you, I don't care if you kill me. And the fellow went ahead and took it anyway and paid him. So that's considered thievery because the guy never consented. Well, not that his consent here is meaningless. It's obviously manufactured consent. It's obviously, consent under duress. But that's in English. The real point here is as follows: the amount of consent you need to provide to validate a sale is fairly minimal, such that coerced consent, which you can argue isn't consent at all, is sufficient. But where there's no consent, even though he's being threatened, that puts you in the category of chamsa. Okay.
That's what I'm getting.
So if you want to specifically break it down, there are actually 4 types of robbers. There's a ganav, a gazlan, a chamsan, and an ashken.
You just have to, if I know the
Oishek. So a ganav is a nighttime thief.
Okay,
He's somebody who's afraid of human beings. He comes at nighttime, he steals, and nobody knows he's there. A gazlan is a mugger. Okay. He mugs you by daytime or your house, whatever. I don't know what the word is. In America, apparently most robberies happen at nighttime. Although I have friends from other countries that in specifically Great Britain, where there's nobody has guns, so they apparently robbers will just walk into your house in the middle of the day, threaten your whole family with a stick, take whatever they want and run. Yeah, and then they call the police, who also come without guns, and they chase the guy who runs away from them. Climbs over a fence and they can't catch him anymore. Allegedly, I don't know if any of that's true, but okay, that is a gazlan. Gazlan is a daytime thief. And then we have a chamsin. A chamsin here is somebody who steals and pays without consent. Oishek is sort of the category where he did. Oishek, I believe, is a category where he substitutes something else. Okay, It's not particularly relevant for this Gemara, but similar idea to a chamsin. Okay, Samach Beis and Beis, top of the page. Mishnah gets a spark. Shiyotza mitachas hapatish. So you have the blacksmith, right? He's whacking things on his anvil, and the sparks flying. And one of those sparks went out and did damage. I was under the impression things wouldn't catch fire from that spark, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a can of gasoline there or something, and he lit a fire. The answer is you're responsible as a blacksmith to be careful, what you're hammering on. Okay, the hizik chayev, you're liable. Gomel shayitoyim pishton. We saw this Gemara previously. You had a camel that was loaded up with flax. Galver b'shus rabim was walking through a public area. V'nichnas b'shtoyne l'tech achanos v'dolku b'ner shulchan. Some of the flax entered a shop where there was a fire burning. And the fire lit the flax, which later on lit the building. V'hidlik asabira lit the storefront. Bal gomel chayev, the owner of the camel, is liable. And however, if the candle was outside in the public property, therefore, if that happened, then the owner of the camel is the owner of the candle, the owner of the storefront is liable because he should not have had a candle outside. However, if it was a candle of Chanukah, then he's permitted to keep it outdoors, and therefore he's exempt. Okay, not so fast. Ravina says in the name of Rava, we see from Rabbi Yehudah's opinion that to fulfill the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, you have to light the candle, close to the ground, under 10 tefachim. Why? The Isak because if you could light it at any height, on my Rabbi Yehudah Ner Chanukah potter. What does Rabbi Yehudah say you're exempt if there was a candle of Chanukah that was outside the shop? Why can't the rider of the camel demand that the menorah be placed in a higher spot, such that it would not light the flax that was loaded onto the camel? It must be, since the owner of the camel does not have that argument. It must be close to the ground, and therefore the owner of the camel can't argue you should have put it higher, because you can't put it higher. The mitzvah is to put it lower down. Under 10 tefachim, which is 30 inches. I'm sorry. What do you say?
Can't be too tall a table.
Yeah, 30 inches. Yeah. So okay, so now there is a bit of difference if you light by the window. This is more if you actually light outdoors, or if you light by your door. If you're lighting by the window, it's a bit of a different story. Or if you light on your tabletop, which is also permitted. Okay. Amri, so Rava responds to Ravina. He says not necessarily. There's no proof from this Mishnah that it must be under 30 inches. My Amrit, what are you going to argue? What are you countering me? That the owner of the camel could say you should have put it higher than my camel. Since he's engaged in a mitzvah activity, that mitzvah would be the mitzvah of lighting the candles of Chanukah. The rabbis didn't require him to build a high shelf, so that he would be required to put the candle on this high shelf. Okay, that really ends the Gemara. Rav Kahana says that Rav Nosson would teach in the name of Rav Tanchum, Ner Chanukah, the candle of Chanukah, you put it above 20 amas, it is invalid. Like a sukkah and like a mavoi. Meaning, if you have a sukkah that's higher than 20 amas, it is invalid. Similarly, if you want to build a kaira for a mavoi, it's a type of eruv. If you built the eruv higher than 30 feet, it would be invalid as well. Okay. Hadron Hakainis, this concludes the parak of Hakainis. Next parak, Meruba. So we'll grab a cup of hot water. Second. Okay. Now, like the rest of Bava Kamma, this parak is about Kollel, general rules. So most of Bava Kamma is not so much about specifics; it's much more about general rules. And Meruba is kicks off the parak right away with a general rule. Meruba midas tashlume kefil midas tashlume arba v'chamisha. Spoke about this in the past. Speaking of a different types of thieves, one type of thief we said is a ganav, right? What's a ganav? It's a nighttime thief. Now, what's unique about a ganav? He pays kefil, right? He pays double payments. There's another unique halacha, which is if he steals a sheep or an ox, if he steals an ox, and then he slaughters it or sells it, or he steals a sheep and slaughters it and sells it, he pays back 4 oxen and 5 sheep. If he stole an ox, 4 oxen. If he stole a sheep, 5 sheep. Okay, so the laws of kefil are more expansive than the laws of tashlume arba v'chamisha, 4 oxen or 5 sheep. What's the difference? Shemidas tashlume kefil neheges bein b'davar sheyesh b'ruach hayim ubein b'davar she'ein b'ruach hayim. The laws of kefil are in place, whether the stolen item is a living animal or not. Meaning, if I steal your horse, I pay back 2 horses. If I steal your table, I pay back 2 tables. Okay, 1 second. Okay, if the item is not alive. Kefil is regardless, whether it's vessels or animals, doesn't make a difference. However, the 4 or 5 payments, 4 oxen, 5 sheep, it's only relevant to an ox or a sheep. If somebody steals a sheep or an ox or a sheep, and then either slaughters or sells it, then you pay 4 or 5. Okay, another difference. I'm sorry, this is not really different. This is really a common denominator. If you steal from a thief, you don't pay kefil. Right? They think that this thief was walking home and he got mugged. Right? On mug, he would never pay kefil anyway. But he brought back his house. Somebody robbed his house and took stolen items. He's exempt from kefil. And similarly, if somebody steals a stolen animal and then slaughters or sells it, they do not pay 4 or 5 oxen, 4 oxen or 5 sheep. Okay. So the Gemara says, I have another difference between kefil and 4 oxen, 5 sheep. For ilu midas tashlumi kefil and heges bein beganav bein b'toyin tainas ganav. Midas tashlumi arba v'chamisha and heges ela beganav movad like tani. There's another distinction. The distinction is, we spoke about previously, there's another way to be a ganav. One type of ganav is somebody who steals at night. There's another method of being a ganav. How do you do that? You are given an item to watch, and you falsely claim it was stolen. That turns you into the same category of claim that you made. You claim a thief stole it, you become a thief. The type of thief that has to pay kefil. Whereas, let's say you were given an animal to watch, and you say it was stolen, and then you slaughter the animal, and it's a sheep or an ox. You don't pay dal v'hei. You don't pay 4 or 5 animals.
You didn't slaughter it, you do so?
No, so in other words, you would pay kefil. You make a double payment. Why? Because we consider you a thief. but we don't consider you a thief with regard. Well, if you're a thief, you should also have to pay dollar hay. If you slaughter or steal it, or if you slaughter or sell it, you should have to pay 4 or 5 animals, 4 oxen and 5 sheep. And the answer is that insofar to require you 4 or 5, we don't consider you a thief. Okay. However, this distinction is not noted in the Mishnah. Yeah. The explanation here why kefil is different from dalad b'hei is because in truth this really isn't you're really not a thief if you're given the item to watch and you lie about it. You're not really a thief. You never really stole anything. The watchman is a liar. He's not a thief. You could argue that his lying results in a thievery. But the point is that in truth, neither one you should have to pay neither payment. There's a special inclusion that you have to pay kefil. Torah specifically specifies kefil even where you lie to steal as opposed to stealing to steal. Okay, now but that inclusion is only with regard to kefil, double payment, not with regard to 4 oxen or 5 sheep. Okay. Now, the fact the Mishnah does not note this distinction, let's say this supports the opinion of Rabbi Dovid Yehudah. Okay, Rav Chia Barabba says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that you do have both types of payments. In other words, in a case where you steal from when a watchman lies about what's in his about what happened, he would, number 1, pay kefil, number 2, potentially pay dalad v'hei, 4 oxen, 5 sheep. So the Gemara says, in other words, the Mishnah, it's true the Mishnah doesn't mention it, but that's not a clear proof. Why? Nikatani ein bain. Does the Mishnah say the only difference is this difference? No, the Mishnah doesn't say it. The Mishnah says meruba. There are more possibilities of kefil than dalad v'hei. Tana v'shayar, it gave one example, but there could be other examples as well. The fact the Mishnah says does not use the terminology such there is no other difference. Terminology instead is there are more possibilities. That's a much more expansive term. So it could be the Mishnah did not note one of the distinctions. Together? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Shemidas Tashlume Kefil Neheges. We'll start this Gemara. I'm not sure how far we'll get. Probably have to review it again tomorrow. Minani Mili. How do we know that Kefil pertains to all things, whereas Dalad V'hei, an ox or a sheep, pertains only to an ox and a sheep and nothing else? A thief makes a double payment if he steals a table or if he steals a cow. But he'll only make a payment to 4 or 5 if he steals specifically an ox or a sheep. Okay, 1 second.
Does he have to slaughter it?
Yeah. And afterwards has to sell or slaughter. Okay, Torah Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. I'll call Dvar Pesha. 1 second. Yeah. Okay. The verse here is referring to a person who was a watchman who claimed the item was stolen. And the Torah gives a whole bunch of examples. A cold var pesha on any negligence. That is a very broad statement. Any negligence that includes literally anything. right? We call that a klal. It's a general statement. Then the Torah gives examples of a bunch of specifics. Al shor, an ox, al chamor, a donkey, al sa, a sheep, al salma, on a piece of clothing. Prat, those are all specifics. And then the Torah continues to say, al kol aveda, any lost object. Kol aveda, any lost object, that literally means anything. Sechaz of a kol, that's a klal, that's a general statement. So what do we have here? Klal uprat uklal. A generalization followed by a specific examples, followed by a general statement. So therefore, we make a rule. We take the pratim, the specifics, and we make a common denominator rule, and we apply that rule to the generalization. Maha prat, just like the specifics, mefurish davar metantal the gufay mammon. It's an item that is movable, the gufay mammon, and it itself has value. So av kol davar metantal the gufay mammon. Anything that's movable and itself is value. We'll explain that in a moment. That is, you pay kefil if you steal one of those. Yotzu karkois she'enim metaltalin. If a guy steals property, there's no kefil because it's not movable. Yotzu avodem shehuk shel karkois. Similarly, with slaves that are considered in the same category as property, even though property is not movable and slaves are movable, they're put in the same category, so they're exempt as well. Yotzu shtaris and documents are their own category. A document is only a vehicle, it's a bearer's instrument, right? In some cases, in other cases, not even that. It's a specific instrument, right? It says that if you have the document, then you get to collect the money. So it itself isn't money. Therefore, you would not pay kefil if you stole your friend's documents. Okay, yotza hektish re'eoksiv. And in general, we exclude hektish. If you stole from the temple fund, you would not pay kefil, because the Torah specifically says re'eu from your friends. It's the last word in the verse. Okay. So we'll stop here. Let's continue this tomorrow. Okay. Have a great day.
Is there online?
All right. Yeah.